She stormed into the courtroom for child support. The judge was the millionaire fiancé's father. "Miss Baker," the judge said, his voice carrying the weight of 2 decades on the bench, "I need to disclose something before we proceed. Wayne Davis is engaged to my daughter Teresa. Under judicial ethics, I should recuse myself from this case." Nell felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Of course. Of course the universe would do this to her. For years of raising a child alone, 4 months of fighting through legal delays, and now this. The one judge in the entire county who had every reason to rule against her was the man holding her daughter's future in his hands. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. However, Judge Prescott continued, and something in his tone made Nell look up. "I am also aware that you have been waiting 4 months for this hearing. That Mr. Davis's attorneys have filed motion after motion designed to delay justice. And I believe, Miss Baker, that justice delayed is justice denied." Nell's heart stopped. "I am going to proceed with this hearing," the judge declared. "If either party wishes to file an appeal on grounds of judicial conflict, that is their right. But I will not allow my daughter's poor choices in men to prevent a child from receiving the support she is legally entitled to." The courtroom went silent. Nell could hear her own breathing, ragged and uncertain. This was not what she had expected. This was not what anyone would have expected. "Is that acceptable to you, Miss Baker?" the judge asked. "Yes," Nell whispered, her voice cracking on the single syllable. "Yes, Your Honor." "Then tell me about your daughter." And in that moment, Nell Baker understood that sometimes justice comes from the places you least expect it. Sometimes the person who should be your enemy becomes your only ally. And sometimes, the story you think is ending is actually just beginning. But before I tell you what happened next, before I reveal the secrets that came out in that courtroom and the confrontation that would change 3 lives forever, I need to take you back. Back to the beginning. Back to the night Nell met the man who would become both her greatest love and her deepest wound. Because this story is not just about child support or courtroom drama. This is a story about survival. About what happens when the person who was supposed to protect you becomes the person you need protection from. About raising a child alone while the world tells you that you should have tried harder to make it work. About the moment you stop running and start fighting. And most importantly, this is a story about whether people can truly change, or whether the person who hurt you once will always be capable of hurting you again. Let me take you back to where it all started. The charity gala was exactly the kind of event Nell Baker would never have attended as a guest. Crystal chandeliers dripped from ceilings that probably cost more to clean than her annual salary. Servers in black ties circulated with champagne that probably cost more per bottle than her monthly rent. And everywhere, there were people pretending their generosity was not primarily motivated by tax deductions. Nell was not a guest. She was working. As the lead event coordinator for Prestige Catering, she spent her evenings making sure rich people had seamless experiences while remaining completely invisible. She wore a headset around her neck and carried a clipboard that contained solutions to every possible crisis. Broken heel on a donor's wife. Champagne spill on a vintage gown. Senator allergic to shellfish who just ate the crab puffs. Nell had handled it all. She was in the service corridor, directing traffic between the kitchen and the ballroom, when a man in a tailored suit wandered through the wrong door. "You are going the wrong way," she said without looking up from her clipboard. "VIP restrooms are back through the main hall, second door on the left." "Maybe I was looking for something other than a bathroom." That made her look up. He was tall, dark-haired, with the kind of jaw that looked like it had been designed by someone who understood geometry. His suit probably cost more than her car. His watch definitely cost more than her car. Everything about him screamed wealth, privilege, the kind of man who had never been told no in his life. But his smile. His smile was different. There was something uncertain in it, something almost nervous, like he was not quite sure this charm would work on her. It would not. "The service corridor is for staff only," Nell said flatly. "If you are looking for the bar, it is through those doors and to your right. If you are looking for a quiet place to take a phone call, there is a terrace on the 2nd floor. If you are looking for anything else, I cannot help you." She turned back to her clipboard. "What if I am looking for conversation with someone who is not trying to impress me?" Nell laughed despite herself. "You think I am not trying to impress you? I think you could not care less who I am or how much money I have. Do you have any idea how refreshing that is? I think you have been spending too much time with people who care about those things. Guilty as charged. He leaned against the wall, making no move to leave. I am Wayne, by the way. I did not ask. I know. That is why I told you. Something about his persistence was less annoying than it should have been. Nell had dealt with wealthy men before, had perfected the art of polite dismissal, but this one seemed genuinely unbothered by her lack of interest. Most men with his obvious resources would have been offended by now. Would have reminded her of her place. Would have made some comment about service staff knowing their role. Wayne just stood there, smiling like she was the most interesting person he had met all night. Nell, she finally said. And I have work to do. Nell. That is a beautiful name. Old-fashioned. It means light, did you know that? I did know that. My mother was an English teacher. Was? Still is. She just retired last year. Moved to Savannah to be closer to the ocean. Do you visit her often? When I can. Which is not often enough. She did not know why she was telling him this. She did not know why she was still standing here, having a conversation with a stranger in a service corridor while the gala continued without her supervision. This was not like her. Nell was careful. Nell was guarded. Nell did not let charming men in tailored suits get under her skin. But something about the way Wayne looked at her, the way he asked questions like he actually wanted to know the answers, the way he leaned in slightly when she spoke, like her words mattered more than whatever was happening in the ballroom. Something about it made her want to keep talking. They talked for 20 minutes. About her job, her dreams of opening her own bakery someday, her complicated relationship with a city that felt too big and too small at the same time. About his work in investment, his love of jazz music, his inability to cook anything more complicated than scrambled eggs. I should get back, Nell finally said, glancing at her watch. My boss is going to wonder where I disappeared to. Can I see you again? The question hung in the air between them. Nell knew what she should say. She should say no. She should say that mixing personal and professional was a terrible idea. She should say that men like him did not date women like her, not really, not in any way that lasted. Instead, she pulled a pen from behind her ear and wrote her number on the back of a napkin. Do not make me regret this, she said as she handed it to him. I would not dream of it. He called the next day. And the day after that. And by the end of the week, they had their first official date at a jazz club downtown, where Wayne knew the owner and got them the best table in the house but spent the whole evening focused entirely on her. That was her first mistake. Letting herself believe he was different. For 8 months, he was. Wayne Davis was not what Nell had expected. Not at all. She had braced herself for expensive restaurants and awkward silences, for the slow reveal that he was just like every other wealthy man she had encountered, charming on the surface and hollow underneath. Instead, she got Sunday mornings at the farmer's market, wandering through stalls of fresh produce while Wayne asked vendors questions about their growing methods like he genuinely wanted to know. She got Tuesday evenings in her tiny apartment, learning to make pasta from scratch, flour covering every surface while they laughed at their failures. She got a man who seemed more at home in her cramped kitchen than in his penthouse with the skyline view. She got a man who showed up. He canceled business meetings to take her to doctor's appointments when she was sick. He remembered the little things, her favorite flowers, the way she took her coffee, the name of her childhood dog. He introduced her to his friends as his girlfriend, not his date, with a pride in his voice that made her chest ache. And one night in October, rain streaming down the windows of his penthouse while they lay tangled in sheets that cost more than her monthly rent, he told her he loved her. I love you, Nell. I know it is fast. I know we are from different worlds. But I have never felt this way about anyone, and I do not want to pretend otherwise. Nell should have been careful. She had spent her whole life being careful, building walls that kept people at a safe distance, protecting herself from the kind of hurt that came from letting someone too close. But Wayne had dismantled those walls so slowly, so gently, that she had not even noticed they were gone. I love you too, she whispered. And she meant it. God help her, she meant it. That was her second mistake. The signs were small at first. So small she could pretend not to see them. A dinner cancelled at the last minute because something came up at work. A business trip that extended from 3 days to 5 with a vague explanation about complications. The way his phone would buzz late at night and he would glance at it with an expression she could not quite read before putting it face down on the nightstand. Nell told herself she was being paranoid. She told herself that wealthy men had demanding careers, that cancelled plans came with the territory, that the slight distance she felt growing between them was just the natural settling of a relationship moving past the honeymoon phase. She told herself a lot of things. But there were moments. Moments when she would be telling him about her day and his eyes would drift to the window, like he was thinking about somewhere else. Someone else. Moments when he would check his phone with a small smile that did not seem meant for her. Moments when he would pull away from her touch in bed, claiming exhaustion, claiming stress, claiming anything except the truth. The truth came out on a Friday. Nell had known she was pregnant for 3 days. 3 days of staring at the test, of doing the math, of trying to figure out how to feel about a future she had never planned. She was terrified and hopeful and uncertain, all at once, a tangled mess of emotions she could not begin to sort through. But underneath the fear, there was something else. Something that felt dangerously close to joy. Because she loved Wayne, and Wayne loved her, and maybe this was not the timeline they would have chosen but it was theirs now. Theirs to figure out together. She chose a restaurant to tell him. A public place seemed easier somehow, neutral ground where she could gauge his reaction without the pressure of privacy. She wore the dress he had bought her for their 6-month anniversary, the blue one that made her eyes look brighter. She practiced what she would say in the mirror until the words stopped sounding foreign in her mouth. I have something to tell you. I am pregnant. I know this is unexpected, but I love you, and I think we can figure this out together. Simple. Honest. Hopeful. Wayne was already seated when she arrived, a glass of wine in front of him that he was drinking faster than usual. Nell noticed but did not comment. She sat down across from him, took a breath, and before she could lose her nerve, she said the words. Wayne, I need to tell you something. I am pregnant. The transformation was immediate. His face went pale, then hard, then carefully neutral in the span of 3 heartbeats. Nell watched it happen like watching a door close in slow motion, and something in her chest went cold. Are you sure it is mine? The question landed like a physical blow. Like he had reached across the table and slapped her. Nell felt the impact travel through her body, felt the air leave her lungs, felt the hope she had carried into this restaurant shatter into pieces too small to ever reassemble. Excuse me. I am just asking. We should be certain before we make any decisions. I have not been with anyone else in 8 months, Wayne. You know that. But even as she said it, even as the words left her mouth, Nell saw something in his expression that changed everything. Guilt. Not the guilt of a man being falsely accused, but the guilt of a man whose own sins were reflecting back at him. He was projecting. He was projecting because he had done exactly what he was accusing her of. Who is she? Nell asked. Her voice was eerily calm, so calm it frightened her. Wayne looked away. Nell, this is not the time to. Who is she? The silence stretched between them. Around them, the restaurant continued its gentle hum, couples at other tables laughing and talking and living lives that had not just been detonated by 3 small words. Her name is Teresa, Wayne finally said. I met her at a fundraiser last month. It was not supposed to be anything serious, but. Nell did not hear the rest. She was already standing, already gathering her purse, already moving toward the door with the kind of mechanical precision that comes when your body takes over because your mind has stopped functioning. She did not cry. She did not scream. She did not give him the satisfaction of a scene. She simply walked out of the restaurant, walked 6 blocks to her apartment, and packed a bag. By morning, she was on a bus to Savannah. And she never looked back. The calls started before she even crossed the state line. 17 times in the first week, Wayne's name lighting up her phone like a wound that would not stop bleeding. She did not answer. Not once. Not even when the calls turned to texts, paragraphs of explanation and apology and promises that things would be different. She deleted every message without reading it. When the calls finally stopped, Nell told herself the silence was a relief. She told herself she was glad he had given up so easily, that it proved she had been right to leave, that a man who truly loved her would have fought harder. But late at night, in the childhood bedroom she had returned to at 29 years old, pregnant and alone, the silence felt less like relief and more like abandonment. He had let her go. He had let her go just like she had always known he would, just like everyone eventually did, just like she had been foolish to believe he was different. 3 months later, a letter arrived. It came in a thick envelope bearing the letterhead of Whitfield, Hartley, and Associates, one of the most expensive family law firms in the state. Nell's hands trembled as she opened it, some foolish part of her hoping it was a custody agreement, a declaration of involvement, some sign that Wayne wanted to be part of their child's life. The letter contained a single offer. $50,000 in exchange for signing away all claims to child support and agreeing to never contact Wayne Davis again. Nell read it 3 times. Read the clinical language that reduced her pregnancy to a liability to be managed, her child to a problem to be solved with money. Read the implicit threat beneath the legal jargon, the reminder that Wayne had resources she could never match, lawyers who could bury her in paperwork until she gave up or went broke. He was not trying to be a father. He was trying to erase her. Trying to pay her off like she was a business deal gone wrong, a mistake that could be cleaned up with the right amount of zeros. Something hardened in Nell that day. Something that had been cracking since the restaurant finally broke all the way through, and what emerged from the pieces was not the woman who had loved Wayne Davis. It was someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who would never, ever let herself be that vulnerable again. She threw the letter away. But she kept a copy, some instinct telling her it might matter someday. Then she went back to the life she was building, brick by painful brick, and she did not think about Wayne Davis anymore. Or at least, she tried not to. Maisie Grace Baker came into the world on a Tuesday in March, 3 weeks early and fighting from her first breath. Nell was alone in the delivery room, her mother waiting in the hallway because someone had to be there when she came out. If she came out. The pregnancy had been difficult. The labor was worse. 18 hours of contractions that felt like her body was trying to tear itself apart, of nurses with worried eyes and doctors speaking in hushed tones outside her door. By the time Maisie finally arrived, purple and screaming and impossibly small, Nell had learned something fundamental about herself. She could survive anything. She looked at her daughter, this tiny creature who carried pieces of both her parents but belonged entirely to herself, and she made a promise. She would build a life for them. A good life. A life that did not need Wayne Davis or his money or his guilt-stained apologies. She named her Maisie for joy, because even in the worst circumstances, her daughter's arrival was the best thing that had ever happened to her. And Grace for the gift she had never expected to receive. The first year was the hardest. Nell's mother helped as much as she could, watching Maisie while Nell worked, providing a roof over their heads when the thought of apartment hunting felt overwhelming. But Margaret Baker was 63 years old, recently retired, not equipped to be a full-time caregiver for an infant. And Nell knew that eventually, she would have to stand on her own. She started at the bakery as a cashier when Maisie was 6 months old. It was the only job she could find with hours flexible enough to work around a baby's schedule, and even then, the juggling act felt impossible. Early mornings frosting cupcakes with one eye on the clock. Racing to the daycare center during her lunch break to check on Maisie. Collapsing into bed each night so exhausted she did not even dream. But slowly, painfully, things got better. By Maisie's first birthday, Nell had been promoted to shift supervisor. By her second birthday, assistant manager. By her third, Nell was running the bakery 3 days a week, had moved into a small apartment with a garden window that let in the morning light, and had built a life that finally felt like hers. The walls of her apartment were covered in photographs. Maisie's first steps. Maisie's first birthday cake, more frosting on her face than in her mouth. First day of preschool, eyes bright with curiosity and a backpack that seemed bigger than she was. Random Tuesday afternoons that had been deemed photo-worthy for no reason other than that they were together, and together was worth documenting. Nell looked at those photos sometimes, late at night after Maisie was asleep, and felt something that was almost like peace. Not happiness exactly. Happiness felt too risky, too temporary, too much like something that could be taken away. But peace. Contentment. The quiet satisfaction of having built something real from nothing but determination and love. She did not need Wayne Davis. She did not need anyone. But the body does not always cooperate with the heart's declarations of independence. At Maisie's 2-year checkup, the pediatrician heard something in her heartbeat that made him pause. Made him listen again. Made him refer them to a specialist with the kind of careful neutrality that doctors use when they do not want to alarm you but also do not want to lie. A small defect, the cardiologist explained, pointing to images on a screen that Nell could not interpret. Likely congenital. Most children grow out of it by age 5. We will monitor it closely, but there is no reason for immediate concern. Nell nodded and smiled and thanked the doctor for his time. Then she went home and spent 3 hours researching pediatric heart conditions, reading article after article until the medical terminology started making sense and the fear in her chest had transformed into something she could manage. She could handle this. She could handle anything. But Maisie did not grow out of it. At 4 years old, the defect that was supposed to resolve itself had gotten worse. The cardiologist, no longer speaking in reassuring generalities, sat Nell down and explained that surgery was necessary. Outpatient, minimally invasive, every reason to expect a full recovery. But surgery nonetheless. The cost was $47,000 after insurance. Nell stared at the number on the estimate sheet and felt the ground shift beneath her. She had savings, of course. She had been careful, responsible, putting away a little from each paycheck for emergencies exactly like this one. But a little from each paycheck for 3 years did not add up to $47,000. Not even close. She worked out a payment plan with the hospital. She took on extra shifts at the bakery. She picked up freelance work in the evenings, building websites for local businesses, anything that paid and did not require her to leave Maisie for too long. She sold things she did not need and things she did need, watched her small apartment grow emptier while the balance on her medical debt grew larger. For 18 months, she fought. For 18 months, she scraped and saved and sacrificed, paying down the principal while the interest accumulated faster than she could keep up. For 18 months, she lay awake at night doing math in her head, trying to figure out how to make numbers work that simply would not work. And finally, she admitted defeat. Not to the debt. Never to the debt. But to the pride that had kept her from seeking what she was legally owed. Wayne Davis was a billionaire. His daughter had needed heart surgery. And for 4 years, he had contributed nothing. Not a single dollar. Not a single moment of his time. Not a single acknowledgement that she existed. Nell had never wanted his money. She had wanted his absence, his erasure from their lives, the clean break that allowed her to pretend he did not exist. But her daughter's health did not care about Nell's pride. Her daughter's future did not care about old wounds. If Wayne Davis could spend $50,000 trying to buy her silence, he could afford to support the child he had abandoned. She filed for child support on a Wednesday afternoon while Maisie was at preschool. The paperwork was tedious, the process confusing, and Nell spent hours online researching what she was entitled to and how to fight for it. She gathered her evidence methodically, the DNA test she had paid for when Maisie was 18 months old, bank statements showing 4 years of sole financial responsibility, medical bills documenting the care Wayne had never contributed to. She prepared for battle the way she had learned to do everything else. Alone. The delays started almost immediately. Wayne's attorneys, the same firm that had sent her the $50,000 letter 4 years ago, filed motion after motion. Requests for continuances. Disputes over jurisdiction. Technical objections that seemed designed to exhaust rather than address. Every time Nell thought she was close to a hearing date, something would push it back another month. She could not afford her own lawyer. She represented herself, spending her lunch breaks in the law library, learning legal procedures through trial and error, becoming fluent in a language she had never wanted to speak. 4 months. 4 months of delays and obstacles and the creeping fear that the system was designed to protect men like Wayne from women like her. 4 months of wondering if she had made a mistake, if fighting was futile, if she should have taken the $50,000 and been grateful for the scraps. But Nell did not give up. She had built a life on not giving up. And finally, she got a court date. The morning of the hearing, Nell stood in front of her bathroom mirror and studied her reflection. The woman looking back at her was not the same woman who had fled a restaurant 4 years ago, heartbroken and pregnant and afraid. That woman had been soft in places this one was not. That woman had believed in fairy tales. This woman believed in herself. She wore a charcoal blazer she had bought at a thrift store and tailored herself, cutting and stitching until it fit like it had been made for her. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a sleek bun that meant business. In her arms, she carried a folder thick with documents, the evidence of 4 years of survival, 4 years of raising a child alone, 4 years of fighting a battle nobody else could see. Her mother watched Maisie while Nell made the drive to the courthouse. 3 hours on road she had not traveled in years, back to the city she had fled, back to the past she had tried so hard to leave behind. The Whitfield County Courthouse loomed before her like a fortress. Marble floors and high ceilings and the distant murmur of justice being administered in rooms she could not see. Nell took a breath, adjusted her grip on her folder, and walked through the doors. She found Family Courtroom 3B and took a seat near the front, her heart pounding against her ribs with such force she was certain everyone could hear it. Around her, the room filled with other petitioners, mostly women, some men, all wearing the same expression of resigned desperation that came from fighting systems designed to exhaust rather than assist. Nell refused to wear that expression. She sat straight, chin lifted, eyes fixed on the bench where the judge would sit. She had not come this far to crumble now. And then the judge entered. Judge Harold Prescott was exactly the kind of man Central Casting would choose for a judicial role. Silver-haired, distinguished, with patrician features that belonged on currency or portraits. He moved with the unhurried confidence of someone who had spent 20 years commanding this room, who knew that his word was law and acted accordingly. Nell watched him settle into his seat, watched him shuffle papers with practiced efficiency. She had researched the judges who might hear her case, had prepared arguments tailored to each one's known preferences and priorities. She was ready. Or so she thought. Because then she saw the photograph. It was small, positioned on the edge of his bench where only those approaching the front could see it. A family portrait. Judge Prescott, a woman who must be his wife, and 2 younger women who must be his daughters. One of those daughters was Teresa Prescott. The same Teresa Prescott who was engaged to Wayne Davis. The same Wayne Davis who had abandoned Nell when she was pregnant with his child. The room tilted. The air left Nell's lungs. She gripped the edge of the bench in front of her, fighting the urge to run, to flee this courthouse and this city and this moment that felt like a trap the universe had spent 4 years constructing just for her. Of all the courtrooms. Of all the judges. Of all the ways this could have gone wrong. This could not be happening. This could not be real. But then the bailiff called her name, Nell Baker versus Wayne Davis, and her legs carried her forward before her mind could talk them out of it. She approached the bench on autopilot, her carefully prepared arguments scattered by the revelation still ricocheting through her skull. Judge Prescott looked up from his papers, and their eyes met. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, confusion, concern. Nell could not tell which. "Miss Baker," he said, his voice carrying the weight of 2 decades on the bench. "You are representing yourself in this matter." "Yes, Your Honor. I could not afford an attorney." "And you are seeking child support from Mr. Wayne Davis for a minor child. According to your petition, the child is 4 years old and Mr. Davis has never made a single payment." "That is correct, Your Honor. He has never acknowledged her existence." Judge Prescott's eyes moved to the papers in front of him. Nell watched him read, watched his expression shift in ways too subtle to interpret. The silence stretched between them, filled with the soft scratching of the court reporter's keyboard and the distant sounds of justice being administered in other rooms. "I see Mr. Davis was properly served but has chosen not to appear today," the judge said finally. "Is that correct?" "He was served 3 times, Your Honor. He ignored every summons." Something shifted in Judge Prescott's expression. A hardening around the eyes that suggested this information carried weight beyond standard judicial concern. "I see." He set down the papers and removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose in a gesture that seemed more human than judicial. When he looked at her again, his expression was unreadable. "Miss Baker, I need to disclose something before we proceed." Here it comes, Nell thought. The recusal. The delay. Another obstacle in an endless parade of obstacles. Wayne Davis is engaged to my daughter Teresa. I became aware of this engagement 3 months ago. Under judicial ethics, I should recuse myself from this case. Nell's last hope crumbled. Of course. Of course he would remove himself. Of course she would be sent back to the end of the line, waiting for another hearing date, another month, another chance for Wayne's lawyers to bury her in paperwork. However, Judge Prescott continued. Nell looked up. I am also aware that you have been waiting 4 months for this hearing. That Mr. Davis's attorneys have filed motion after motion designed to delay. That you have been fighting for justice against an opponent with unlimited resources while you represent yourself because you cannot afford counsel. His voice had changed. There was something in it now that had not been there before. Something that sounded almost like anger. I believe that justice delayed is justice denied, Miss Baker. And I will not allow my daughter's poor choices in men to prevent a child from receiving the support she is legally entitled to. Nell felt tears threatening and blinked them back fiercely. She would not cry. Not here. Not now. I am going to proceed with this hearing, Judge Prescott said. If either party wishes to file an appeal on grounds of judicial conflict, that is their right. But the child's welfare will not be sacrificed on the altar of technicalities. Is that acceptable to you? Yes, Your Honor. Nell's voice came out stronger than she expected. Yes, that is acceptable. Good. He leaned back in his chair like a man settling in for a story he genuinely wanted to hear. Then tell me about your daughter. Before I continue with what Nell said next, before I reveal the testimony that would expose the full depth of Wayne Davis's betrayal, I need to pause and speak directly to you. If you have ever walked into a room expecting one battle only to find yourself facing something completely different, if you have ever felt the universe conspire against you so perfectly that you wondered whether you were being tested, if you have ever been underestimated and overlooked and dismissed only to prove everyone wrong, I want you to hit that like button right now. Because Nell Baker is about to tell her story. And what she says in that courtroom will not only change her daughter's future. It will end an engagement. Expose a billionaire's darkest secret. And set in motion a chain of events that nobody saw coming. Trust me. You do not want to miss what happens next. Her name is Maisie Grace, Nell began. She is 4 years old. She has her father's eyes, though she does not know what that means yet. She likes dinosaurs and purple crayons and asking questions I do not always know how to answer. She took a breath. She had heart surgery 6 months ago. A congenital defect that was supposed to correct itself but did not. The procedure cost $47,000 after insurance. I have been paying it off for 18 months while working 2 jobs. The interest accumulates faster than I can pay. That is why I am here. Judge Prescott was watching her with an intensity that made Nell feel exposed in a way she had not anticipated. Not just seen, but examined. Wade. Tell me about the father, he said. Tell me about Mr. Davis. Nell had prepared for this question. Had practiced her answer until the words felt smooth and professional, free of the bitterness that still sometimes caught in her throat. But standing here, in this courtroom, facing the father of the woman who had replaced her, the smooth words disappeared. What came out instead was the truth. I met Wayne at a charity gala 5 years ago, she said. I was working as an event coordinator. He wandered into the service corridor looking for a bathroom and found me instead. She could feel the memory pressing against her chest, could almost smell the champagne and expensive perfume of that night. We dated for 8 months. He told me he loved me. He made me believe that we were building something real. And then I got pregnant. The courtroom was silent. Even the other petitioners waiting for their cases had stopped their whispered conversations. I told him about the pregnancy at a restaurant, Nell continued. I thought public space would make it easier. I thought he would be surprised but happy. I thought we would figure it out together. Her voice did not waver. She would not let it waver. Instead, he asked me if I was sure the baby was his. Judge Prescott's expression darkened. When I pressed him about why he would ask that question, he admitted he had been seeing someone else. A woman named Teresa that he had met at a fundraiser the month before. The name hung in the air between them. Teresa. The judge's daughter. The woman who was currently planning a wedding to the man who had abandoned Nell when she was pregnant. I left that night, Nell said. I did not cry. I did not scream. I just left. I went back to my apartment, packed a bag, and was on a bus to Savannah by morning. What happened after you left? Judge Prescott asked. His voice was carefully controlled, but Nell could hear the tension beneath it. He called 17 times in the first week. I did not answer. He sent texts apologizing, explaining, promising things would be different. I deleted them without reading. And did he make any attempt to contact you regarding the pregnancy or the child's birth? Nell reached into her folder and pulled out a document she had kept for 4 years, waiting for the moment it would matter. 3 months after I left, I received this letter from his attorneys. She handed it to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. Nell watched Judge Prescott read it, watched his face transform from professional neutrality to something darker. This letter, he said slowly, offers you $50,000 to sign away any claims to child support and agree to never contact Mr. Davis again. Yes, Your Honor. His attorneys sent this to a woman he knew was pregnant with his child. Yes. A woman who was alone in another city, presumably without significant financial resources. Yes. And what did you do with this offer, Miss Baker? I threw it away, Nell said. I was not interested in his money. I just wanted him to leave me alone so I could build a life for my daughter without his interference. But circumstances changed. My daughter needed surgery, Your Honor. I exhausted every other option. I came here because I have no choice. Because pride does not pay for prescriptions, and love does not cover medical bills. Because my daughter deserves support from both parents, even if one of those parents has spent 4 years pretending she does not exist. The silence that followed was absolute. Judge Prescott set down the letter and looked at Nell with an expression she could not quite read. Miss Baker, he said finally. In 20 years on this bench, I have seen every kind of case. Parents who fight viciously over children they do not actually want. Fathers who move heaven and earth to be part of their children's lives despite every obstacle. Mothers who lie, mothers who tell the truth, and mothers who are simply too exhausted to do either anymore. He paused. But I have rarely seen someone come into my courtroom asking for so little when they deserve so much. Nell felt her composure crack, just slightly. Just enough for a single tear to escape before she could catch it. I am entering a default judgment against Wayne Davis, the judge declared, his voice carrying through the silent courtroom. He was properly served 3 times and chose not to appear. His absence speaks volumes about his character and his priorities. He picked up his pen. Based on my assessment of his financial resources, I am ordering child support of $4,500 per month, backdated to the child's birth. That is approximately $216,000 in arrears. Nell's knees nearly buckled. She gripped the podium in front of her to stay upright. Additionally, the judge continued, I am ordering Mr. Davis to provide health insurance for the minor child, to pay all outstanding medical bills related to her care, and to establish a college fund with an initial deposit of $50,000. These amounts are to be paid within 30 days. Failure to comply will result in contempt charges and potential jail time. Your Honor, Nell started, but found she could not finish. You do not need to thank me, Miss Baker. This is not generosity. This is the law. Your daughter is entitled to support from both parents. The only unusual thing about this ruling is that it is actually being enforced. He paused, and something in his expression shifted from judge to father. I should also tell you that I intend to have a conversation with my daughter this evening. About the character of the man she has chosen to marry. That conversation will not be pleasant for either of us. I am not trying to break up their engagement, Nell said quickly. I do not care about Wayne anymore. I just want my daughter to have what she needs. I understand, Judge Prescott said. But my daughter has a right to know who she is really marrying. The choice remains hers. But it will be an informed choice. That is the least I can do. He banged his gavel once. Court is adjourned. The story should have ended there. Nell should have collected her money, paid her daughter's medical bills, and continued building the quiet life she had constructed in Savannah. The small apartment with the garden window. The bakery where she had worked her way up to manager. The carefully curated existence that did not include billionaires or betrayal. She had won. Against all odds, against a system designed to favor the wealthy, against the father of her child's future father-in-law serving as judge, she had won. Justice had been served. The chapter was closed. But life rarely followed the scripts we wrote for it. 3 weeks after the court ruling, Nell was in her kitchen making dinner when someone knocked on the door. Maisie was in the living room, playing with the dinosaur toys Nell had bought with the first installment of Wayne's back payments. The sound of her daughter's laughter, easy and unshadowed by worry, was the best thing Nell had heard in years. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and went to answer the door. Wayne Davis stood on her doorstep. He looked nothing like the man she remembered. The tailored suit was replaced by jeans and a wrinkled shirt. The confidence that had once seemed so attractive now radiated uncertainty. And his eyes, those eyes that had once looked at her with what she had foolishly believed was love, held something she had never seen in them before. Fear. "Nell," he said, and even his voice was different. Smaller somehow. "I know I do not deserve to be here. I know you have every right to slam this door in my face. But please. 5 minutes. That is all I am asking." Nell studied him. The man who had broken her heart. The man who had abandoned their daughter. The man who had tried to buy her silence with $50,000 and then ignored her existence for 4 years. She felt nothing. That surprised her. She had expected rage, or grief, or at least the echo of the love she had once felt for him. But there was nothing. Just a vast empty space where he used to matter. "You have 3, she said flatly. Wayne swallowed. "Teresa's father showed me the court documents. All of them. The letter my lawyers sent you. The testimony you gave. Everything." He paused, struggling for words. "And then he showed me photographs. He had hired a private investigator to look into the case. He showed me pictures of my daughter." His voice cracked on the last word. Nell watched him try to compose himself and fail. "Her name is Maisie," Nell said, her voice carrying no warmth. "She is 4 years old. She likes dinosaurs and purple crayons and asking questions I cannot answer. She had heart surgery 6 months ago that you are now paying for. Those are facts. What is your point?" "My point is that I am an idiot. A coward. The worst kind of person, someone who knows he is doing wrong and does it anyway because it is easier." Wayne ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she remembered from years ago. It used to make her want to smooth it down. Now it meant nothing. "I knew you were pregnant when you left. I knew I had a daughter. I convinced myself that if I just ignored it long enough, it would somehow stop being real." "It did not," Nell said. "No. It did not." Wayne's eyes were wet now. "Teresa ended things after her father talked to her. She said she could not marry someone capable of abandoning his own child. She is right. I am not capable of being the person she thought I was. I am not sure I am capable of being any kind of decent person at all. Is that supposed to make me feel sorry for you? No. Nothing could make you feel sorry for me. I am not asking for sympathy. I am asking for something I have absolutely no right to ask for. A chance to meet my daughter. Just once. Just to see her. I will leave afterward. I will not try to insert myself into her life or disrupt the stability you have built. I just need to see her. To know she is real. To understand what I threw away." Nell studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation, for the charm she remembered wielding against her 5 years ago. She saw only devastation. Only a man who had finally been forced to look at himself and found nothing worth looking at. For a moment, just a moment, something in her softened. Then Maisie's laughter drifted from the living room, pure and unshadowed, and the softness disappeared. "No," Nell said. Wayne flinched like she had struck him. "Nell, please." "I said no. You do not get to meet her because you are feeling guilty. You do not get to use my daughter as therapy for your crisis of conscience. That is not what this is. It is exactly what this is." She stepped closer, and Wayne actually stepped back. "You are not here because you want to be a father. You are here because you want to stop feeling like a monster. Those are not the same thing." Wayne opened his mouth, but Nell was not finished. "Maisie does not exist to make you feel better about yourself. She is not a redemption arc for your character development. She is a person, a 4-year-old person who has never known her father's face because her father chose to pretend she was not real." She felt her voice rising and forced it back down. She would not give him the satisfaction of her anger. "If you actually want to know your daughter, not meet her once and disappear again, but actually know her, be part of her life, show up consistently even when it is inconvenient, then we can have a different conversation." She paused, letting the words sink in. "But that would require you to change who you fundamentally are. And I do not believe you are capable of that. She stepped back and closed the door. Part 2. Wayne Davis did not go back to his billionaire life. I found out 3 days after I closed the door in his face. Maria, the woman who ran the coffee shop next to the bakery, mentioned it casually while I was picking up my morning latte. "Did you hear about the new guy working at the Family Resource Center?" she asked, sliding my cup across the counter. "Some hotshot from up north. Apparently he used to run a big investment firm. Now he is doing intake interviews for people who need help with their electric bills." I almost dropped my coffee. "What did you say his name was?" Maria shrugged. "Wayne something. Davis, I think. Seemed nice enough. A little out of place, though. You could tell he has never had to worry about an electric bill in his life." I walked to work in a daze. The Family Resource Center was a non-profit that helped low-income families access financial services, apply for assistance programs, navigate the maze of bureaucracy that separated people from the help they needed. It was exactly the kind of organization that someone like Wayne would donate to for the tax write-off. It was not the kind of place he would actually work. And yet, I told myself it was a performance. A desperate, elaborate performance designed to make me feel guilty for refusing to let him meet Maisie. He would stay a few weeks, maybe a month, get bored, and disappear back to his penthouse and his board meetings and his life of comfortable selfishness. But a few weeks passed. Then a month. Then 2. Wayne did not leave. He rented an apartment in a modest complex downtown, the kind of place that probably cost less per month than he used to spend on dry cleaning. He showed up at the Family Resource Center every morning at 8 and stayed until 5, sometimes later. He learned the intake systems, the application processes, the names of the regular clients who came in week after week. He was not playing at charity. He was doing the work. I know all this because Savannah is a small city, and people talk. Maria kept me updated without knowing why I cared. My mother mentioned seeing him at the grocery store, looking lost in the produce section like a man who had never shopped for himself before. Elena, my assistant manager at the bakery, said her cousin worked at the Family Resource Center and could not stop talking about the new guy who treated everyone with respect regardless of their circumstances. I listened to these reports with growing confusion. This was not the Wayne I knew. The Wayne I knew would never sacrifice his comfort for anything, would never put himself in situations where he was not the most important person in the room, would never choose difficult and meaningful over easy and hollow. Either he had changed completely, or he was running an extremely long con. I refused to believe the former. Believing it would mean reconsidering everything I thought I knew about him, about people, about the possibility of transformation. It would mean cracking open the certainty that had protected me for 4 years. I was not ready for that. So I ignored him. I went about my life, taking care of Maisie, running the bakery, paying down the remainder of my medical debt with Wayne's child support payments. I built higher walls and told myself they were keeping me safe rather than keeping me trapped. And then the letters started. The first one arrived on a Tuesday, exactly 1 month after I closed the door in Wayne's face. It was handwritten, addressed to Maisie Baker, but clearly meant for me to read first. There was no return address, just a Savannah postmark. I almost threw it away without opening it. Almost. But something stopped me. Curiosity, maybe. Or the need to know what angle he was playing. I told myself I would read it just to confirm my suspicions, just to find the manipulation I knew was lurking beneath the words. I opened the envelope and began to read. Dear Maisie. You do not know me yet, and that is my fault. I am your father, though I have not earned the right to call myself that. I am writing to you because I do not know any other way to start becoming the person who deserves to be in your life. Today at work, I helped a woman named Patricia apply for emergency assistance. She has 3 kids and just lost her job. She cried in my office, not because she was sad, but because she was relieved that someone was finally listening to her. I did not know what to say, so I just listened. Sometimes that is enough. Your mother probably taught you that. She always knew how to make people feel heard. I am learning a lot of things I should have learned a long time ago. Like how to listen. Like how to show up even when it is hard. Like how to be useful to people who need help instead of just writing checks and walking away. I do not expect you to read this letter. I do not expect anything from you or your mother. I just want you to know that I am here. That I am trying. That I am not going anywhere. I love you, even though I have not earned the right to say that either. Your father. Wayne. I read the letter 3 times. I looked for the manipulation, the guilt trip, the subtle pressure to change my mind. I found none. It was just a man, writing to his daughter, describing his day. I put the letter in a drawer and told myself it did not matter. The second letter arrived the following Tuesday. And the third the Tuesday after that. Every week, like clockwork, a handwritten letter addressed to Maisie, telling her about Wayne's work, his therapy sessions, the things he was learning about himself and why he had been such a coward. Dear Maisie. Today my therapist asked me why I chose to have an affair instead of being honest with your mother about my fears. I did not have a good answer. The truth is, I was afraid. Afraid of how much I loved her, afraid of becoming someone different, afraid of the vulnerability that comes with really committing to another person. So I chose someone who did not challenge me. Someone who let me stay exactly the same. And in doing so, I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. Your mother deserved better. You deserved better. I cannot change the past, but I am trying to change myself. That is all I can do. I miss you, even though I have never met you. Is that strange? To miss someone you have never known? Your father. Wayne. Dear Maisie. I coached a little league game today. The kids are from families who use the resource center. Most of them have never had someone show up for their games before. When I realized that, I almost cried right there on the field. You probably have people who show up for you. Your mother would make sure of that. She was always the kind of person who showed up, who kept her promises, who did what she said she would do. I was not that person when I knew her. I am trying to become that person now. One of the kids hit his first home run today. He looked so surprised, like he could not believe something good was happening to him. I know that feeling. I am starting to believe that good things are possible, even for people who have made terrible mistakes. I hope you believe that too. Your father. Wayne. Dear Maisie. Your mother said something to me the last time I saw her. She said that if I wanted to know you, I would have to change who I fundamentally am. She said she did not believe I was capable of that. She was right to doubt me. I have given her no reason to believe otherwise. But I am going to prove her wrong. Not to win her back, not to get something from her, but because she deserves to be wrong about this. Because you deserve a father who shows up. Because I deserve to know what it feels like to be worthy of the people I love. I started volunteering at the children's hospital this week. The same hospital where you had your surgery. I read books to kids in the waiting room. I do not know if it helps, but it feels like something. It feels like trying. I am not going anywhere, Maisie. I know you cannot read these letters yet. I know your mother is probably reading them first, looking for proof that I have not changed. I hope she finds the opposite. Your father. Wayne. I read every letter. I told myself it was reconnaissance, that I was looking for cracks in his performance, gathering evidence for the moment he inevitably gave up and proved me right. But the cracks never came. Week after week, month after month, the letters arrived. 52 of them over the course of a year. Each one handwritten, each one describing Wayne's slow and painful transformation from the man he had been to someone I almost did not recognize. He got promoted at the resource center. He started a financial literacy program for single parents. He coached Little League all season, then signed up to coach again the following year. He went to therapy twice a week and did not pretend it was easy or that he had all the answers. He showed up. Consistently, persistently, without expectation of reward or recognition. And slowly, against every instinct I had spent 4 years honing, my certainty began to waver. The question came on an ordinary Tuesday evening. Maisie and I were making dinner together, her small hands carefully tearing lettuce for a salad while I stirred pasta on the stove. The radio played softly in the background, some song about love and loss that I was trying not to listen to. Mama, Maisie said, her voice carrying that particular tone children use when they are about to ask something important. Why do I not have a daddy? I had known this question would come eventually. I had prepared for it, rehearsed answers that were honest but age-appropriate, that explained without blaming, that protected her while still telling the truth. But standing in my kitchen, looking at my daughter's curious face, all my rehearsed answers disappeared. You do have a daddy, I said carefully. He made some mistakes, and he was not ready to be a father when you were born. But he has been trying to learn how. Maisie considered this with the seriousness of a philosopher contemplating existence. Is he the one who sends the letters? My breath caught. I had never shown her the letters. They arrived every Tuesday, and every Tuesday I read them alone after she went to bed. I thought I had been careful. But children notice everything. You know about the letters. They come every week, Maisie said matter-of-factly. I see you reading them sometimes. Your face gets all scrunchy, like you are thinking really hard. I laughed despite myself. Her powers of observation were devastating. Yes, baby. He is the one who sends the letters. Can I read them? The question hung in the air between us. I thought about the 52 letters sitting in a drawer in my bedroom, the careful record of a man's transformation, the words he had written to a daughter he had never met. Someday, I said. When you are ready. When will I be ready? I do not know yet. But I will tell you when. Maisie nodded, accepting this with the trust children give to parents who have never let them down. Then she went back to tearing lettuce, the conversation apparently complete as far as she was concerned. But for me, it was just beginning. That night, after Maisie was asleep, I spread all 52 letters across my kitchen table. I read them again from beginning to end, looking for something I might have missed. Looking for proof that this was all an elaborate manipulation designed to wear down my resistance. I found something else entirely. I found a man who had been broken by his own choices and was trying to rebuild himself piece by piece. A man who went to therapy and admitted he did not have all the answers. A man who showed up for other people's children because he could not show up for his own. A man who wrote letters every week without any guarantee they would ever be read, simply because it was the only way he knew to stay connected to a daughter who did not know he existed. I found change. Real, painful, earned change. And I found myself facing a question I had been avoiding for a year. What if I was wrong about him? I did not sleep that night. I sat in my kitchen until dawn, staring at letters that had become something I never expected them to be. Evidence. Not evidence against Wayne, but evidence for him. Evidence that people could change if they were willing to do the work. Evidence that the man I had known 5 years ago was not the same man writing these letters. Evidence that my certainty, my protective walls, my absolute conviction that he was incapable of transformation, might be the thing keeping my daughter from knowing her father. And keeping me from something I was afraid to name. I picked up my phone and texted Wayne for the first time in over a year. We need to talk. His response came within 30 seconds. Whenever you are ready. I will be there. I stared at those words for a long moment. Whenever you are ready. Not demanding, not pushing, not trying to control the situation. Just waiting. The man I had known would never have waited. He would have shown up at my door, would have tried to charm his way past my defenses, would have made it about his needs rather than mine. This Wayne was different. I just did not know if different was enough. We met at the park on a Saturday morning. Neutral ground, public space, Maisie playing on the jungle gym while I sat on a bench and tried to figure out what I wanted to say. Wayne approached slowly, like someone approaching a wild animal they did not want to startle. He was dressed casually, jeans and a simple button-down shirt that probably cost more than most people's entire outfits but somehow looked ordinary on him now. The arrogance I remembered was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like humility. Thank you for agreeing to see me, he said, sitting on the far end of the bench. Giving me space. I read your letters, I said. All 52 of them. I hoped you would. I was looking for evidence that you had not changed. That this was all an act designed to manipulate me. And what did you find? I looked at him, really looked, for the first time since he had appeared on my doorstep a year ago. The lines around his eyes were deeper than they used to be. His hair had more gray. But the biggest change was in the way he held himself, less certain, more open, like someone who had learned that he did not have all the answers. I found a different person, I admitted. Someone I do not recognize. Good. I did not like the person I used to be. Neither did I. At least not after I understood who he really was. Wayne flinched at that, but he did not defend himself. Did not try to explain or justify. Just accepted the pain like it was the least of what he deserved. I have been thinking about what you said, I continued. About wanting to meet Maisie. About wanting to be part of her life. And I still do not trust you. I understand. You do not get to be hurt by that. You do not get to feel sorry for yourself because I am not ready to forgive you. I know, Wayne said quietly. I am not asking for forgiveness, Nell. I am not sure I deserve it. I am just asking for a chance to prove that I have changed. Not for my sake, but for hers. He looked toward the playground where Maisie was climbing the jungle gym with the fearless confidence of a child who had never been let down by the people who were supposed to protect her. She deserves to know her father, Wayne continued. Not the man I was, but the man I am trying to become. And if I fail, if I let her down, you can cut me out of her life forever. But please. Give me a chance to try. I watched my daughter play. Watched her laugh and climb and reach for the sky without any doubt that she would catch it. She was so brave, my girl. So unafraid. I wanted her to stay that way. But I also knew that eventually, she would ask more questions. Eventually, she would want to know why her father was not part of her life. Eventually, she would need answers that I could not give her. And maybe, just maybe, she deserved the chance to form her own opinions about the man who had helped create her. One meeting, I said finally. Supervised. At a place I choose. You do not tell her who you are. Not yet. She thinks you are a friend of mine who wants to meet her. Okay. If she seems uncomfortable at any point, we leave. No arguments, no guilt trips, no trying to extend the visit. Of course. And Wayne. I waited until he looked at me. If you hurt her. If you let her down. If you give her any reason to doubt that she is the most important person in any room she walks into. I will destroy you. And I am not speaking metaphorically. I understand, Wayne said. And I would deserve it. Good. I stood up. Next Saturday. 10 in the morning. This park. I will be here. I walked toward the playground to collect my daughter, feeling his eyes on my back with every step. I did not look back. I did not need to. He would be there. For the first time in 5 years, I actually believed that. The first meeting was awkward in all the ways I expected and tender in ways I did not. Wayne arrived 10 minutes early with a stuffed dinosaur clutched in his hands like a lifeline. A triceratops, to be specific, because he had read in one of my letters to the court that Maisie liked dinosaurs and had probably researched the best dinosaur toys available and agonized over his choice for hours. You did not need to bring a gift, I said when I saw him. I know. But I wanted to. He shifted his weight from foot to foot like a nervous teenager. Is that okay? I looked at the triceratops. It was well made, not flashy, the kind of toy that would survive years of love. I nodded. Maisie had been told that a friend of Mama's wanted to meet her. She approached the situation with her characteristic combination of curiosity and caution, sizing up this stranger with the same intensity she applied to new foods or unfamiliar playground equipment. Hi, Wayne said, crouching down to her level. I am Wayne. I brought you something. Maisie examined the triceratops with serious consideration. What is his name? Wayne blinked. I had not thought about that. What do you think his name should be? Professor Horns, Maisie declared without hesitation. Because Triceratops means three-horned face and he looks very smart. Professor Horns it is, Wayne agreed solemnly. I think that is an excellent name. Maisie tucked the dinosaur under her arm and fixed Wayne with an assessing stare. Do you want to see me go across the monkey bars? More than anything. She grabbed his hand without ceremony and dragged him toward the playground. I followed at a distance, watching this man who had abandoned his daughter learn what it meant to follow where she led. For an hour, Wayne did nothing but pay attention to her. He watched her cross the monkey bars and celebrated like she had won an Olympic medal. He pushed her on the swings and laughed when she demanded to go higher. He sat in the sandbox and helped her build a castle, then made elaborate dying sounds when she declared that a dragon had attacked and knocked it down. He was not trying to buy her affection or impress her with his wealth or make the moment about himself. He was simply present, fully and completely, the way a father should be. When it was time to leave, Maisie surprised us both. "Can Wayne come to dinner?" she asked, looking up at me with those eyes that were so much like his. "He is really good at dragon voices." I looked at Wayne. He was looking at me with an expression of desperate hope that he was trying very hard to hide. "Maybe next time," I said carefully. "But he can come back to the park next weekend if he wants." "I want," Wayne said quickly. "I will be here." Maisie nodded, satisfied. Then she took my hand and we walked away, Professor Horns tucked securely under her other arm. I did not look back. But I felt something in my chest that I had not felt in a long time. Hope. The weeks that followed established a pattern. Every Saturday, Wayne came to the park. Every Saturday, Maisie dragged him from one activity to another while I watched from my bench. And every Saturday, I found it a little harder to remember why I had been so certain he could not change. By the end of the 3rd month, he was coming to dinners. By the end of the 6th month, he was helping with homework. By the end of the 8th month, Maisie was calling him daddy, and the word hit my heart like a thunderclap every single time. It happened without fanfare. We were eating dinner at my apartment, the 3 of us around my small table, and Maisie asked for more juice. "Daddy, can you pass the apple juice?" Wayne froze with his fork halfway to his mouth. I stopped breathing. Maisie looked between us, confused by our reactions. "What? That is what he is, right? You said he is my daddy." I remember. She remembered. Of course she remembered. Maisie remembered everything. Wayne set down his fork and looked at me, silently asking permission. I gave the smallest nod. "Yes," he said, his voice rough with emotion he was struggling to contain. "That is what I am. And I would love to pass you the apple juice." He poured the juice into her cup with hands that trembled slightly. Maisie accepted it without comment, already moving on to telling us about the picture she had drawn at school that day. For her, the moment was simple. For Wayne and me, it was everything. After Maisie went to bed that night, we sat on my small porch drinking tea in the October chill. The silence between us was different than it used to be. Less guarded. Almost comfortable. "I do not know how to trust this," I finally said. "I know," Wayne replied. "I am not asking you to trust it. I am just asking you to let me keep showing up. You have been showing up for 8 months. And I will keep showing up for 8 more. And 8 more after that. For as long as you will let me. What if you get tired of this? What if the novelty wears off and you realize you miss your old life?" Wayne was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rougher than usual. "My old life was empty, Nell. I had money and status and a penthouse with a view of the city, and I was completely alone. I did not realize it then because I was too busy filling the emptiness with work and distractions and women who let me be my worst self." He turned to look at me. "But I know it now. This," he gestured at the small porch, the modest apartment, the window behind which our daughter slept. "This is the opposite of empty. This is full. This is meaning. This is everything I did not know I was missing." "Pretty words," I said. "I have heard your pretty words before. I know. That is why I am not asking you to believe them. I am asking you to watch my actions and judge me by those instead. I have been watching. For 8 months. And what have you seen?" The question hung in the air between us. I thought about the letters, 52 of them, documenting his transformation week by week. I thought about the park visits, the dinners, the homework help. I thought about the way he looked at Maisie, like she was the sun and he had been living in darkness his whole life. "I have seen someone I do not recognize," I admitted. "Someone I did not think you were capable of becoming. I did not think I was capable of it either." Wayne's voice was barely above a whisper. "That is what scares me most. What if I backslide? What if I hurt you again? What if I am not strong enough to maintain this version of myself?" Those are good questions. I know. I ask my therapist the same things every week. She says the fear is actually a good sign. It means I understand what is at stake. What does she say about us? She says that is up to you. That I should focus on being consistent and let you decide what happens next. That pressuring you would be the opposite of change. Your therapist sounds smart. She is. She also says I should not expect you to ever fully trust me. That some wounds leave scars that never completely heal, and that is okay. The goal is not to pretend the past did not happen. The goal is to build something new that can hold the weight of what came before. Can we do that? I asked. Can we build something new when so much of what was old was so broken? I do not know, Wayne said honestly. But I would like to try. If you would let me. I looked at him. This man who had broken my heart so completely I had spent years certain I would never let anyone close again. This man who had tried to erase me with money and silence. This man who had spent 2 years proving, through action rather than words, that he was capable of becoming someone new. I am not ready for more than this, I said carefully. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I need you to understand that. I understand. And if you hurt her, if you hurt Maisie in any way, there will be no more chances. I will not let my walls down just to watch you destroy them again. I would never ask you to. But if you keep showing up. If you keep being this person. If you prove over time that this is who you really are and not just who you are when you are trying to earn something. Then maybe we can talk about what comes next. Wayne's face transformed with a hope so raw it almost hurt to look at. I will keep showing up, he promised. Every day. For as long as you will let me. Whatever it takes. I believed him. For the first time since that night in the restaurant when my world collapsed, I actually believed him. It terrified me. But maybe, I was beginning to understand, some things were worth being terrified about. Before I reveal how this story ends, before I tell you about the proposal and the wedding and everything that came after, I need to pause and speak directly to you. We have been on a journey together. From that courtroom where Nell faced impossible odds, to the years of survival, to the confrontation on her doorstep, to the letters and the park visits and the slow, painful rebuilding of trust. This story is not just about Nell and Wayne. It is about all of us. About whether we believe people can change. About whether forgiveness is possible after the deepest betrayals. About whether the worst thing someone does has to define them forever. If you have been hurt by someone and are struggling to decide whether to give them another chance, I want you to know that there is no right answer. Some people prove worthy of forgiveness. Some people do not. The only way to know which kind you are dealing with is to watch their actions over time and trust your own judgment. If you are the one who did the hurting, who made the terrible choices and caused the irreparable damage, I want you to know that redemption is possible. But it is not earned through apologies or promises or grand gestures. It is earned through showing up. Day after day. Year after year. Until your actions have built a new foundation strong enough to hold the weight of your past. Now, let me tell you how this story ends. A year passed. Then another. Wayne did not leave. He did not get bored or tired or nostalgic for his old life. He showed up every day, just as he had promised. He canceled business opportunities to make it to Maisie's school plays. He learned to braid her hair through YouTube tutorials and patient practice. He coached her soccer team despite knowing nothing about soccer beyond the basic rules. He became the father she deserved. And somewhere along the way, he became something else too. Someone I could imagine a future with. The realization crept up on me slowly, like dawn breaking over a dark horizon. I caught myself looking forward to his visits not just for Maisie's sake but for my own. I caught myself laughing at his jokes and missing him when he was not there and wondering what it would be like to kiss him again. I caught myself falling in love with a man I had sworn to hate forever. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday night. We were cleaning up after dinner, moving around each other in my small kitchen with the easy rhythm of people who had done this hundreds of times. Maisie was already asleep, and the apartment was quiet except for the clink of dishes and the soft sound of rain on the windows. I need to ask you something, Wayne said, setting down a dish towel and turning to face me. I knew what was coming. I had known for weeks, maybe months, from the way he looked at me when he thought I was not watching. From the way his hand lingered on mine when we passed dishes back and forth. From the way he had started saying we instead of I when talking about the future. Okay, I said. I am not asking for forgiveness, Wayne began. What I did 5 years ago, abandoning you, trying to buy your silence, pretending you and Maisie did not exist, those things are unforgivable. I know that. But I am hoping that we can build something new. Something that is not about forgiving the past but about choosing each other now, with full knowledge of who we have both become. He did not get down on one knee. He did not produce a ring. He just stood there, vulnerable and honest and terrified, waiting for my answer. You hurt me, I said. You broke something in me that took years to heal. I know. And part of me will always be waiting for you to do it again. Will always be braced for the moment when you decide this life is too small, too ordinary, and you leave. I know that too. Can you live with that? With a wife who might never fully trust you? I can live with earning your trust every day for the rest of my life, Wayne said. I can live with proving myself over and over until you have no choice but to believe me. I can live with anything except losing you and Maisie again. I looked at him. This man who had been my greatest love and my deepest wound. This man who had spent 3 years dismantling himself and rebuilding from the ground up. This man who had earned every piece of my heart that I had given him and asked for nothing in return but the chance to keep earning more. Yes, I said. His face transformed with joy so pure it almost hurt to look at. Really? But not yet, I continued. Ask me again in a year. After we have survived homework and stomach bugs and all the ordinary disasters that make up a real life. After we have seen each other at our worst and still chosen to stay. Ask me then, and if you are still here, I will say yes again. I will be here, Wayne promised. I swear to you. I will be here. Then show me, I said. Do not promise. Show me. And he did. For another year, he showed me. Through first grade and second. Through chicken pox and broken arms and the endless negotiations of raising a child together. Through arguments and misunderstandings and the hard work of building a relationship on a foundation of shattered trust. He showed up. Every single day. Even when it was hard. Even when I pushed him away. Even when my fears got the better of me and I tested him with cruelty he did not deserve. He stayed. And then there was James. I found out I was pregnant on a Thursday, the same day of the week I had told Wayne about Maisie 5 years earlier. History repeating itself, but different this time. This time, when I told him, he did not go pale or ask if the baby was his. He grabbed me and spun me around and cried with a joy so overwhelming that I started crying too. We got married 6 months later, on a Saturday in June, in the backyard of the house we had bought together. It was not a grand affair. No cathedral, no 500-person guest list, no elaborate production designed to impress people we did not care about. Just family. Just friends. Just the people who had witnessed our journey and believed we could make it this far. Maisie was the flower girl. She scattered purple petals down the aisle with the seriousness of someone performing a sacred duty. Judge Prescott officiated, having long since made peace with the complicated circumstances that brought us all together. I understand you have written your own vows, the judge said when we reached the appropriate moment. Wayne, you may begin. Wayne took my hands and looked at me with eyes that had seen my worst and still chosen to stay. I love you, he said, not despite everything that happened, but because of it. Because the worst thing I ever did led me to become someone worthy of standing here with you. He paused, and I saw tears forming that he did not try to hide. 5 years ago, I was a coward. I chose comfort over commitment, easy over meaningful, and in doing so, I lost the best thing that had ever happened to me. I spent 3 years rebuilding myself from nothing, becoming someone I had never been before, because you deserved that person. Because Maisie deserved that person. Because I deserved to know what it felt like to be worthy of the people I love. His voice cracked, but he continued. I cannot promise I will never make mistakes. I cannot promise our lives will be easy or perfect or free from pain. But I can promise that I will show up. Every day. For the rest of my life. I will show up for you, for Maisie, for our son, for this family we have built against all odds. That is my vow. I was crying openly now. I did not care. My turn. I love you, I said, because you chose change over comfort. Because you showed up every day even when I gave you reasons not to. Because you proved that people can become better than their worst moments. I squeezed his hands. 5 years ago, you broke me. You shattered everything I believed about love and trust and the possibility of happily ever after. I built walls so high I thought no one would ever breach them. I convinced myself that surviving was enough, that I did not need more than safety and stability and the absence of pain. I was wrong. I looked at our daughter, standing beside us in her purple dress, watching her parents with eyes full of hope. You taught me that walls can be prisons as much as protection. That trust can be rebuilt if both people are willing to do the work. That the hardest forgiveness is not forgiving someone else but forgiving yourself for letting them back in. I turned back to Wayne. I cannot promise I will ever stop being afraid. I cannot promise the scars will fully heal or the doubts will fully disappear. But I can promise that I will keep choosing you. Every day. Even when it is hard. Even when the fear tells me to run. I will keep choosing you. That is my vow. Judge Prescott pronounced us husband and wife, and Wayne kissed me with all the tenderness and passion and hope that had been building between us for 3 years. Our daughter cheered. Our friends applauded. Our son kicked inside me, already impatient to join this imperfect, beautiful family. And that is where I will leave Nell and Wayne. Not at an ending, because real stories never truly end. They continue and evolve and face new challenges. But they face them together, rebuilding trust daily, proving that second chances are real when both people are willing to do the work. Now, I need to talk to you one final time. This story was not just entertainment. It was a mirror. Maybe you saw yourself in Nell, fighting alone against systems designed to exhaust you, building walls to survive, learning that survival is not the same as living. Maybe you saw yourself in Wayne, realizing too late what you threw away, wondering if redemption is possible, discovering that change requires action rather than words. Maybe you saw yourself in Maisie, navigating the complexity of imperfect parents doing their best. Wherever you found yourself in this story, I want you to know that your journey matters. The battles you are fighting right now, the walls you have built to survive, the hope you are afraid to feel, all of it matters. Here is what I learned from telling this story. Survival is where strength is proven. Nell survived betrayal, abandonment, single motherhood, medical emergencies, and a legal system designed to work against her. She survived because she had no choice. Because the alternative was unthinkable. Because she loved her daughter too much to give up. But surviving is not the same as living. Eventually, Nell had to ask herself whether the walls keeping her safe were also keeping her trapped. Whether the certainty that protected her was also a prison. Whether being alone was strength or just another form of hiding. People can change, but only if they choose to. Wayne's transformation was not inevitable. It was chosen, worked for, maintained through daily effort and uncomfortable honesty. He did not become a better man because he was exposed or because he lost his engagement. He became a better man because he decided to do the work, without any guarantee it would be rewarded. Actions, not words, define character. Wayne wrote 52 letters. He showed up at the park for months before Maisie was allowed to know who he was. He earned every piece of trust Nell eventually gave him. His words meant nothing until his actions made them mean something. Forgiveness is not the same as absolution. Nell never fully trusted Wayne, even after they married. Some wounds leave scars that never completely heal. The goal is not to pretend the past did not happen but to build something new that can hold the weight of what came before. And finally, the most important lesson of all. You deserve to be happy. Not just safe, not just surviving, but actually, genuinely happy. Whatever that means for you. Whether it means giving someone a second chance or walking away from someone who does not deserve one. Whether it means building walls or tearing them down. Whether it means fighting for something or letting something go. You deserve a life that is full, not empty. Meaningful, not just manageable. You deserve to be more than your worst moments and more than the worst things that have been done to you. Remember that. If this story moved you, I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button. Not for the algorithm. For yourself. As a declaration that you believe in the possibility of transformation. As a statement that you refuse to let your past define your future. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that broken things can be rebuilt. That single parents are warriors. That justice sometimes comes from the most unexpected places. Subscribe to Mr. Dawson Stories and turn on notifications. Because every week, I am here telling stories about love and loss and the messy work of becoming better than we were. Drop a comment telling me your story. Have you ever given someone a second chance they actually earned? Have you ever been the one who needed to earn that chance? Your stories build this community. Your engagement matters. You matter. Until next time, remember this. Survival is where strength is proven. But love is where strength finds its purpose. I will see you in the next story.